If you manage to listen, do not worry, new people. If you did not listen, it's never like a prerequisite to coming to Pod Plus. But if you did manage to listen, let us know in chat what stuck. Was there anything that particularly resonated with you? I've got a few other questions that I'd love to ask from you, but let us know if you did listen. Let us know. Ooh.
Oh, Dan, don't encourage her. Oh, look at you all. This is people who've listened.
Yay! You're like my support system, everybody. Sarah just mocks me for all of my alliteration and stuff. And yeah.
That one was a step too far. I thought everyone would be with me on that and being like, no, she's gone too far this time.
That's made me really happy. That might have made my day, just because Sarah's like, I think we might need some more of that kind of career cheese going into us.
Oh no. Yeah. Thanks, Steve. That feels like the sort of response I was looking for.
Steve's bringing the credibility back. Everybody else, I'm going to get some more of those in. And every time when Sarah like groans, you can be there with me. I have a few questions for you that I wanted to get a little bit of insight into, and so we're going to use the people that know regularly. We're going to use the stars for this, so I just wanted to get a little bit of a data dashboard going on our one-to-ones. New people, I'm going to ask you to vote on something in a second, and we'll put the instructions of how to do it in chat, but it's basically towards the top of your screen. You're going to go few options, annotate, stamp and star to vote on this question I'm going to ask you. So the first thing I wanted to know is, in the context of you and your one-to-ones, how often are you having them at the moment? Do you have them weekly, monthly, or maybe there's some people who just never have one-to-ones? You can vote on this. So Harjeet, thank you for putting there. But for all the regulars know this. So you can put the star. If you go to view options at the top of your screen, annotate, stamp and star, Sarah's put it in just to get a bit of insight. Laura, I don't know if you want to chat, in which case you're welcome to say hello, or whether that is an accidental hand. Do come off mute. So I'm going to add some manual ones in. I've got a manual weekly there, 2 monthlies, another weekly. So it looks like the weekly one-to-one is the winner. Kind of always interesting. No massive conclusion to this, everybody, just kind of interested in what your insights are. And then this one, do you find, in terms of the quality, so that's sort of like the quantity that we're having, the frequency we're having, in terms of how useful they are for you at the moment, are they very useful or not very? I.e., there's some room for improvement to put our ideas for action into them. So some of you are having lots of effective one-to-ones, which is good to know. Sarah and I, because Sarah and I sort of manage each other, because we're co-founders. We sort of like co-manage each other, and we're always trying to improve our one-to-ones. And I always find them useful. Brilliant. So it looks like we're in a relatively good place, everybody. I'd say the majority of people are having weekly one-to-ones, and they're very useful. For the not very useful, there are quite a few in the middle. Eliza, you're right. Maybe I was being a bit too positive. For the so that the people that are in the middle, as Eliza says, it's kind of like some good, some room for improvement, a bit of a mix. There, I just want to summarize a couple of the tips that we talk about on the podcast for you. I'm just going to move your lovely stars off for a second. This is all summarized in the pod note, and you can get the pod note on Instagram, swipe across it. It's on LinkedIn and it's on our website, so you'll be able to find this. You can download it and share it with people as well. But the first thing that we talked about was this one here, which is the idea of modeling your manager. So often when we, if you want to get something from a one-to-one, it's very useful to think about, where is my manager coming from, which might be like, where are they coming from today? What are they focused on at the moment? What's their biggest priority? If you can model your manager, even the way they like to engage with and receive information. I've had very structured, data orientated managers. I've had managers that would rather have a big free ranging conversation. Like if I think about Sarah as my kind of co-manager, if I'm trying to model Sarah doesn't really like to be put on the spot with a big question. Like if I said, I want to get this done this week, what should we do? Sarah would be, if I was modeling Sarah, I would be much better off letting her know in advance that I wanted to talk about that, so she could think it through beforehand. So yes, it's about you and your agenda, but if you want to get the most out of it, think about how you can model your manager. Second thing is know your need. So there's loads of things you could talk about, as a couple of people have said in the chat. This isn't just an update. You can do the updates over Microsoft Teams, over emails, all of that. You can get that stuff done beforehand. think about what is it I actually need from this meeting, because it's probably not to update my manager. It's probably, I need you to make a decision. I need you to give me an idea. I need you to help me resolve this problem I'm having with a stakeholder. If you have that intent from the outset, it will frame the discussion and you will get much more from it. When we kind of just do updates, it might be sometimes because we've not prepared for the meeting, or we're thinking more about what does the manager need more than what we need to get from it. And then this seems to have resonated with quite a few people, this idea of starting with a win and a why. And this is about you kind of setting that conversation up, positively, and taking the lead from the outset. So this, and we don't often talk about our successes quite enough. So this is a regular way that you can pause and think about what's gone well this week. And so start with a win. So it might be, my win today was we had lots of new people in Pod Plus, and that felt really meaningful because it helped me to feel like we are growing our community of squiggly career listeners who come together to learn with each other and from each other, for example. And that would be one of the things that I might talk about. So just 3 very specific ideas for action for all those people that were like in the middle, or maybe they were finding that their one-to-ones aren't that great at the moment. Hopefully helps you to take a little bit more control of them. And then you can download the pod sheet as well. So these are always like editable. I know some people print them off, but you can always fill them in. These have got like editable bits for you to type in, and you can download those from the website. And if you are a fan of the pod sheets, because this was a new tool that we developed this year, and because we are, we're doing like the year in review, if you are a fan of them, always feel free to give us some feedback, because we do this every week. We do spend quite a bit of time on them. So if there's things that you think are working well as we go and develop all of our tools for next year, let us know, because we'll keep doing those pod sheets. But if you think there's anything that can make the pod sheets more useful, one thing that could make it even better, always let us know. We really want to, they are quite useful for us because they summarize things, and we share them with lots of people, but ultimately it's a tool for you. So if there's something we could do to make this a more useful tool for you, please let us know. I'm even thinking about whether we pull them all together into a compendium. That's a really horrible word, but you know what I mean, like this, because so you don't have to kind of scan them all, whether we could put them all together into one big thing. But good, I'm glad you like them. Sarah, anything on one-to-ones before we move on to our competition?
Oh no, I was about to share my screen because I was about to go into the next section, but I'll let you do your competition and then I'll share screen.
Do you want to end on the competition, or do you want to go competition now?
No, go for it. Do it now. Let's do in between competition.
Okay, so everybody, we have a competition. But the reason that we're doing this competition is because we love this community. We love the Pod Plus community. It's one of the things that it energizes us. We learn a lot from you, all of your links. Doing the podcast is quite a one-way thing. Like Sarah and I get a chat, we basically talk to each other and put it out into the world, and the conversations that we have with you is probably one of the best ways that we know that people listen, and it is such a nice thing. So we want to kind of say thank you to you, and it's the end of year and it's nearly Christmas, so we have this for you. We've created these for new book. They're called boundary boxes, and the idea is that for if you're working from home, we want to create a bit of a boundary between like work and life, and we've sized it so it fits all laptops, unless you have like, I don't know, one of those giant Microsoft Surfaces or iMac thing. It should fit most laptops. So it fits your laptop, so you can put it in the end of the day, and it will be delivered to you, winner, with 2 copies of our new book, which you will send us in the beginning of January. So you might even get it before it's actually out. So 2 signed copies, one for you, one to give away to somebody else. It will have, it's really messy, can you see? It will have bookmarks, it will have post-it notes, because we want you to make this book messy with all of your insights. It will have chocolate, which isn't in here yet, not because I've eaten it, because it's at home, and highlighters, these kind of cool highlighters. So it is for you to you coach you and to kind of build a boundary. So that is what you can win, everybody. How? You may say how. Sarah's like, get on with it, Helen. The question, you have a question for you to answer, and the person who either gets the right answer or gets closest to the right answer will be the person that wins the competition. So the question is, how many pages are there in our new book? It's a random question, everybody. I was trying to think about something that you wouldn't know. Okay, how many pages are there in our new book? How many pages? The person who's closest. I'm scanning. Has anyone got the right answer? Oh my gosh, something's gone wrong with my chat. I can't.
No. Well, what is the right answer, Helen? And I'll see if anyone has got the exact answer.
No, I can't say it to you, because then people will type it.
Oh no, but we'll give everyone like 10 more seconds.
Well, I do know the right answer, and I'm scrolling now. I'm going to say Okay, 10 more seconds, everyone, to get your answer in. 10 more seconds. Can I see? So the right answer.
Some of you think that the book is way bigger than it is.
I know. The answer is, oh my gosh, there's a couple of people who've got the same answer that are very close. The answer is 296 pages. And dun, 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 we've got a couple of people who I think might be, I don't know what it means. So it's probably an arbitrary number of pages, but I think it's slightly bigger than squiggly for what it's worth. So I'm going to save the chat, because I can see, I think the closest might be a couple of people who put 300. So I will work out what we do with those couple of people that are closest. And Sarah is going to lead our review, but well done to everybody. Thank you for entering this random question. And then I will be in touch with the people that I think 300 might be the closest. So I will sort that out while Sarah's chatting.
Okay, everyone. So part 2 of Pod Plus, because we've got a podcast coming over the new year, all about questions to ask yourself to review your 20. We thought we would just do some of that live with you, just to press pause in what will be quite a fast-paced way to ask you some of these questions. So let's do them together. First of all, how would you describe 2021 in one word? So Helen and I have done all these things. I won't kind of go first. I'll let you all go first in chat. Let me know 2021 in one word. And we'll do these things fast today, but hopefully these are questions you can also spend some more time thinking about after today, but we thought we'd have a practice. It's good just to think about where we are, what we're feeling. Loads of different sorts of words. We've got change, challenging, chaotic, lots of C's, eye-opening, exciting, tough, fight or flight, Joe. Yeah. Okay. Useful to think about that. And also useful to ask yourself this question. What do you want to remember about 2021? And when you are answering this question, one thing just to be aware of, and that's something called recency bias. And Helen and I found this, the reason I wanted to bring it up is when we were doing these questions, preparing for the podcast that you'll hear in a couple of weeks' time, when we are thinking about our year, it's really tempting. You sort of, without even realizing it, you don't do a review of the year, you do a review of right now, because the things that you can remember the most are the things that are happening in the here and now. And so it takes a little bit longer to think about, well, what was happening in January? What was happening in March? So if you can, I would encourage you to spend half an hour answering this question, maybe alongside looking at your work calendar, which I know doesn't sound very inspiring, but I found this really helpful. Actually going back and thinking, well, what was I actually spending my time doing in January? Oh, that's right. I was spending a lot of time writing You Coach You. Okay, well, what was I doing? What was happening sort of in March? What were the big moments? What were the hard moments? And as I go through these, which is surprisingly organized for me, down here, if this is the question you really want to spend time on, this is the podcast episode that I think would help you the most. So this was 61 is all about how to reflect. So if you really want to think about, you know, what you remember, might be remembering some of the things that you're proud of, might be remembering what you learned from maybe a hard moment, maybe remembering how far you've come. So just think about what is it that you want to, you know, remember from 2021 to take into 2022, so you don't waste any learning. So we often, you know, we forget, oh, that was actually a really good thing. I want that to stick and to stay with me. Yeah, that's interesting, Steve. Yeah, so if you've had a really good start, but the last few months have feel hard, you could go into 2022 going, it feels really hard, and you've forgotten some of those good things. Yeah, lovely. So Dan's done a really good description there of sort of his year, which perhaps helps us with the next question. Really interesting to always think about, what can we learn from our lows? One way to do this, and this is your podcast episode down here, and this is also for people who have got squiggly, this exercise is in the values chapter in Squiggly Career. What have you found hardest about this year? Another way to reflect on the year is do your career graph for the last 12 months. So if these are your highs, these are your, yeah, it was all right, and these were your kind of lows, what does your year look like? Almost exactly as Dan has done in chat, sort of going, this bit was good, not so good. So you might go, okay, it felt a bit like this, then maybe it felt like this. Maybe there was a really kind of mixed wobbly moment. Maybe there was some good highs. Maybe it felt okay for a bit. Maybe there was a tricky moment. But then maybe you sort of go, well, here I am. What we are really focusing on here, and this is not to be negative, but we do often learn a lot from our lows. What was it about those moments that was hard for you? Why did you find them hard? What did you do to recover? Like, how did you cope? What was useful? What helped you get back to a high? So have a go at doing that. We sometimes talk about doing a career graph for all of your career. I think it's really helpful to do what did my career look like over the last year, and what can I learn from that? And, you know, obviously you can also think about, you know, what highs you've got as well, but maybe really think about what can you learn from your lows. I actually find that a positive exercise to do. It sounds slightly counterintuitive, but it is really useful. Now a question, excuse me, a bit about who you are spending time with. And this episode down here, one of our most popular episodes of the year, was about personal boards. So thinking about who have you learned from this year? So let's do that one in chat. Let's do that live. We don't need to know them. It might be your manager. It might be someone at work. You might have learned from someone you don't know. Perhaps you follow someone's work and you think, well, I've learned a lot from, you know, watching this person's, I don't know, TED talk. Or, you know, if I think about, I sort of feel like I learn from some people I know and some people I don't know. So let me know in chat, who have you learned from this year? Maybe you've learned from a friend. Eliza's done lunch club meetings.
You love a bit of a lunch club.
Yeah, Viv Groscott. This is also a great example. I feel like we're bringing everything together. This is really good curiosity crowdsourcing, everyone, for all of you regulars. A great way to sort of borrow some brilliance and think, oh, okay, maybe you've not listened to Bruce Daisley yet. I would hazard a guess, if you enjoy our podcast, you'll find Bruce quite interesting. Very different style to us, more about culture. He's more about work and work culture. We're more about you and your career. So we're quite a complementary act, I always think, us and Bruce Daisley. Resilience from Anne Bowden, Kerry. I've also read that book. What's it called? Banking on it, I think, is the book.
Right, yeah.
And I interviewed her for our podcast. That book is actually fun. It's a really fun and quite a funny read. It's like a soap opera because of all the different people involved. And you're sort of thinking at any one time, like, how is this going to turn out? It feels more like a story than a business book. It is fascinating, and she's very straightforward with her advice, which I really enjoyed. Oh, that's so nice. What you've learned from your husband working from home, your friend who's a therapist, useful friend to have. It is a bit like a thriller. You're right, your children.
Oh, Ben Williams.
Ben Williams. Yeah. And use this to prompt thinking about, do you feel like this year, you know, have you spent enough time? We sometimes talk about this idea of curiosity coffees. You know, have you learned from people mainly you already know? Or have you gone out and found some new people to learn from? Are you learning from people who offer you different points of view and different perspectives? Are we getting the cognitive diversity that we benefit from the people that we spend time with? If you're interested in cognitive diversity, that's the work of Matthew Syed. And I think one of my favourite ever Helen interviews on the podcast is Helen speaking to Matthew Syed, which was actually at towards the start of lockdown 1. The memories. And I remember going for a walk. Yeah, going for a walk and feeling quite down at that time, obviously, and listening to Helen talk to Matthew. And he has such good clarity. He's a really good communicator. His work is also, you know, really good, definitely influenced some of our work. Already. So who have you learned from this year? And maybe what does that mean for next year? Are you already doing a great job and it's about sustaining that? Or is it about adding a bit of newness or different points of view into next year? You don't need to put this in chat, but you're very welcome to if you'd like to. And this is the podcast on making mistakes. Thinking a bit about one mistake that you've made this year, and just make sure you don't do a full stop here. Make sure you answer the second part of this question, because that's the most important thing. And what did you learn? And those mistakes can be anything from, maybe you made a mistake in you know, a very kind of practical task focused mistake. Maybe you made a mistake about a process. When I started to think about this, because when we were recording the podcast, I said to Helen, I ended it with a list of things where I was like, here are my people mistakes. Here are my project mistakes. Here are my process mistakes. I sort of started to categorize them. But I found that question easier to answer almost once I got categories, because otherwise I think it just felt so big. I was like, oh, mistakes. And they obviously sort of weren't necessarily top of mind for me. Whereas when I thought about, oh, okay, well, have I made any mistakes in terms of maybe like relationships? Or have I made any mistakes in terms of just like the work that I've been doing that I think, oh, actually, I really noticed now I could have done that differently. And then thinking about the learning. It's all about the learning. We've talked before about this idea of mistake meetings. Helen and I think, have got a lot better, partly because mistakes are one of my fixed mindset triggers, at talking about mistakes really quickly and sharing mistakes and trying to move as quickly as you can to what did you learn. If you just stop at mistakes, you can stay in fixed mindset and your inner critic can kick in, which I think is what Ruth is talking about. You get to, I've made a mistake, and then very quickly you can fall into victim, blame, I'm not good enough. And you don't you miss out on all of the opportunity to learn. And we all make mistakes. We sort of forget that. We forget that we all make mistakes. The really important thing is, how do we learn? How do we get better? Yeah, some really interesting ones. Thank you for people who are prepared to share those in chat. Appreciate that. That's quite a kind of personal thing to do. Next question. I love this one. And this is probably the thing I'm most proud of, and we'll come on to pride in a minute, from an amazing if perspective, so not a personal perspective. But this is the podcast episode here. This is the idea of, what mistakes have you been running this year? Because I sort of feel like you run a mistake, an experiment, sorry. So what experiments have you been running? So this is where you're trying something out for the first time. You're doing something a bit different, probably feels uncomfortable, probably has some uncertainty with it. And you're just sort of trying to see if it works. And I think when you label something as an experiment, it changes your attitude and your mindset towards it. And we talk on the podcast that you'll hear about the experiments we've run as a company this year. And we have definitely done things differently where we have labeled something an experiment. It's meant that we've let things go. It's meant that we've given something more space. It's helped us in terms of prioritizing, but still making some progress on some things that wouldn't have happened, things that would have been really easy to say no to. And some of the things I think we are particularly proud of have come from those experiments. Debbie, that's a great experiment, learning how to swim and overcoming your fear of water. I feel like that's two at the same time. There's both the learning and the fear. Doing monthly pages for your journal, Megan, brilliant. And I would just, my reference for this when I'm thinking about experiments is then Jim Collins. One of the things that Jim Collins talks about is, once you then run experiments, the really smart people, the people that go from good to great, what they do is they recognize which experiments have worked really well, and then they overinvest in them. So the point of experiments is that some will fail, some might be okay, and you might sort of adapt a bit and keep it as an experiment. But there might be some experiments that you then choose to overinvest in because they have worked or they show real potential and promise. He talks about, I don't love the analogy because I feel it's a bit warlike. It's a bit sort of military vibes. He talks about millions work, and I would recommend my episode.
Sarah, sorry, your Wi-Fi cut out, and I think you were going to talk about cannonballs, would have been my guess. Okay.
Hear me now?
Yeah, just about, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, good. That's reassuring. I'm hoping you can hear me. I was just going to refer to Jim Collins' work there, where he talks about, you've got to fire so many bullets and then work out which one to call cannonballs. I don't love the kind of military analogy, but his point is a really good one. You don't want to experiment in a vacuum. You want to figure out what to overinvest in. It's worth listening to my podcast episode with him, which isn't number 173. That's about talking about experiments. So 2 things to finish with. And before we do this, actually, I would love you to all share in chat one thing that you're proud of from this year. One thing that you're proud of from this year. Let's start to bring our Pod Plus to a close with some pride before we look ahead to next year. So what are we proud of this year? Jo, finding yourself again, that seems like a good thing to do. Resilience, just getting through the year. Skills in digital events, brilliant. Developing as a coach, Laura, amazing. Positivity, it might be skills, it might be behaviours. finding a new job, you've got a happy child, Elaine, that's always a good thing. Returning from mat leave, always a tough time, really hard returning from mat leave. We've both done it and it's always hard. More conscious learning, love that one. Challenging yourself, so much to be proud of. Make sure, if you're like me and you're future focused, which I think we all have a slight tendency to either be past, present or future focused. I'm a very future focused person. The risk this time of year is then you move on too quickly. You don't take that moment to just be proud of what you have done well, how far you have come. So try and make some time for you to really think about that for this year, because that will fuel you going into next year. And then on the future focused, and because I love to do this, let's fast forward to 12 months time. We are all still here. Hopefully you've all stuck with us for another year. What's the one word you want to be saying about your year?
Oh, amazing. Freedom, progression, learning. These are all the best words. Achievements, want to say our nice values. Positivity, pioneering, enrichment.
Enriched.
Amazing. Growth. Put that word somewhere that you can see for the next 12 months. Like stick it with sellotape, a post-it note with sellotape so that it does not fall off on your laptop. Great.
So I'm going to hand back to Helen now and say goodbye because I'm dashing off to another session. But I just wanted to say thank you all for spending time with us this year. And if there's one thing you do before now and the end of the year, take half an hour for you and do one thing that's about you and your career to set yourself up for success next year.